David Brewster here with 3 for All, and this is 3 Vivian Campbell Licks from 1989. And I did feature Vivian and Adrian Vandenburg a couple years ago in a 3 for All, and that was centered around back when they were working with Whitesnake, like in the mid to late 80s. And I also did a chord play for Dio, where we talked about Vivian and some of his chord work and rhythm work. But since that time, I've had a lot of requests to feature more Vivian Campbell and some more Dio. So I figured it was about time to go ahead and devote an entire 3 for All just to Vivian Campbell. So here we go. Vivian Campbell's a very important and influential guitarist, and definitely as soon as he hit the scene with Dio, I think he joined forces with Ronnie James Dio in 1982. The following year, Holy Diver came out. He was about 20, 21, when he hooked up with Dio. And then he left Dio and started working with Whitesnake. That was about a year plus. And then he was in this kind of transition limbo period where he worked with Riverdogs. I think he recorded an album with Lou Gramm. And then in 92, he basically joined forces with Def Leppard. And I always consider Vivian the new guy in Def Leppard, even though it's approaching 30 years since he joined that band. It's almost like calling Christy Alley, the new girl on Cheers. Vivian Campbell's been in the band for 30 years, so he's not the new guy anymore, even though my brain kind of thinks that way. This lesson features a lot of pivot arpeggios, and I had a lesson in Guitar Player magazine. I guess that was the holiday 2017 issue, and Learning to Fly, and that's all about pivot arpeggios. It talks about Nuno Bettencourt and Steve Vai and a whole bunch of people, Gary Moore. And Gary Moore is a very important, inspiration, or one of, Vivian Campbell's influences, a heavy, heavy influence. Definitely it's the Irish connection too, I think. But, Gary Moore's a, late great guitar legend. But Vivian Campbell definitely spent a lot of time working with these pivot arpeggios and kind of, carved his own kind of signature way of playing with these ideas. So if you're not really sure what pivot arpeggios are, seek out the Guitar Player lesson, and definitely you can find, these kind of ideas everywhere. All right, the licks in this lesson come from a clinic that he gave at GIT out in Hollywood, and that was in 1989. And it was Vivian Campbell and Friends, and I think this was right before he started to push Riverdogs. So I think it was that kind of transition, post-Whitesnake, but before, Def Leppard. Playing Tom Anderson guitars, big giant hair, big giant racks, really cool period of Vivian Campbell's career. All right, the first lick uses these pivot arpeggios, and it's this rolling kind of arpeggiated legato idea like this. One more time. So right there, we're basically starting with E dominant 7. So we got this open D string to E to G sharp to B. And then he starts doing this kind of legato flutter like this. So after you do that little flutter or hammer on pull off, just end with an A power chord right there. And then he slides and grabs a higher piece of that A power chord. There's an E and an A right there. So when it starts, then you're going to almost do the same thing again. And then the last time you're going to start with that dominant 7 and E, then go up to A, and then go to G, and then go back to E. So all the way through it one more time. The next idea also uses pivot arpeggios, and this is pretty wicked. It's a little higher on the fretboard, and it's something like this. One more time. So it's pretty pretty challenging, and we're actually starting here with A minor, and we're also grabbing this G sharp, so it's going to be an implied A minor major 7, or kind of a harmonic minor, tonality. And I really like that. That has a cool flavor. And then right there, you're going to move up, and it's kind of like a D minor 6. Implied. And then G major right here on the G and the D strings. And then go back to that A minor, or A minor major 7. And then it's F major. Back to G major. And then end on E major right here. I think you actually move down and grab like an A power chord down here. You can end it however you want. I'm gonna do that a little bit slower, but I'm gonna connect it like this. Kind of hear there's some like kind of doubled notes where you hear notes kind of being repeated, and that's definitely kind of a challenge, and it's going to feel a little weird at first, but a little bit faster. And you could probably hear a few of those kind of doubled notes. One more time up the tempo. The next idea is really out there, and it's this kind of wide intervallic double picking idea. It almost reminds me of something you hear from Steve Morse, but here's Vivian Campbell just ripping this out. It's really tough, so it's something like this. You could also do it this way. Which, it's a little bit easier because the frets are a little closer together, but I actually had the most luck playing it right here. And that was, moving from the A to the high E. And even though the frets are a little further apart right there, it does line up. Like that. So you're basically grabbing this, F sharp really high and then an F sharp much lower. And that's where the double picking's coming in, because you're double picking that lower F sharp. And then you're going to move between F sharp and E right there. And then you're literally kind of walking down. It's kind of like F sharp minor pentatonic, like this. So there's that F sharp to E and then C sharp to B. And then do that again. And then grab this D note right there. So it's outside of, F sharp minor pentatonic. And that's kind of where he stopped, and I just end on that F sharp right there. So one more time, kind of slow. It's a really tough lick. It's very unorthodox. It's hard to play cleanly. You have to mute everything. Your picking hand is jumping around all over the place. So definitely take it really slow and gradually work that idea up. It's just really hard to play it, clean. You could hybrid pick it too, I guess. Something like that. But I don't think Vivian's doing it that way in the footage. I think you can actually hear and see him picking, just aggressively through that whole idea. Here's a bonus lick from this footage, and it's a little higher on the fretboard. It reminds me of Michael Schenker, and it's this frantic, kind of spread out legato idea like this. more time. So we're in F sharp minor, and we're basically doing this at the start. So you can see we're basically grabbing this F sharp, we're grabbing this A, we're occasionally moving up and grabbing this B, and then he also grabs this G sharp, just once in there. So he's doing this really slow. Start by going from F sharp to A, and then you're going to grab that E right there on the B string, and then reach up and grab that B like this. So you're going to alternate between those two twice. And then go back to that A, and that's where you're going to grab that G sharp, and then back to the A, back to the B, and do that one more time, and then right there go back to the A one more, and then you're going to basically shift up. And it sounds like that last note, I did kind of cut it off, but I think he was doing this really wide vibrato. And of course he kept going after that. I just had to stop it there. Something like that, a little bit slower. Really cool lick, sick. It reminds me of Dave Mustaine for some reason. I think it's that wide intervallic playing, because Dave Mustaine does a lot of that too. But it definitely reminds me of Michael Schenker, and it's Vivian Campbell obviously. But Schenker does those, but of course he doesn't use his pinky. He's usually just three-fingered right there. But one more time. All right, that's going to wrap this look at 3 Vivian Campbell Licks from 1989. And Vivian's a very dynamic and expressive, and he's got a lot of energy and power, especially back in his Dio days and, playing with Whitesnake. And there's just something about, the energy that he put out. And definitely on those early, Dio albums, his solos were just furious. He rarely ever stopped to like bend or use vibrato. It was just, barrages of notes and all these flurries of runs and licks. Very powerful guitarist and influential. Vivian influenced all of his peers and all the up-and-coming guitarists, back when he was playing with Dio. So definitely an essential guitarist. So anyway, leave some feedback and some comments. Please subscribe to Late Night Lessons, and I'll be back before you know with more content and material. Thank you.